can we have a brief introduction into your 30-year history?
Sure. I first used to come to Hong Kong in the late 80s selling computer software to insurance companies, and I love coming to Hong Kong. I just love the dynamism, I love the resilience of the city, I love the can-do attitude of the people. And I was very excited to accept an offer from an insurance company here to become their marketing manager. But in the early days of my work here, I encountered a claim. I had an overflow of a bath, and it irrigated my apartment and caused a lot of damage to the parquetry and cascaded down the stairs. I was glad it didn't go into the neighbours. When I came to claim, the insurance company rejected my claim. And I asked why, because I'd been negligent, and so I had a liability to my landlord. And the insurance company said, we don't want the claims. And it really struck me that there was a need in the market for people to be better advised about the small print of insurance policies. So in 1991, I set up Navigator Insurance Brokers, and the reason for the word Navigator was that I saw us as being in business for captains. People had an idea about where they were going, but they just needed some help in getting there. And so as insurance brokers, we work for the customer. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and give the kind of advice that I didn't get when I was buying from an agent in Hong Kong. In the early days of our business, we encountered a fairly persistent requirement from HR managers, which was to provide their American staff, especially, with US-style medical insurance, which wasn't available in Hong Kong. And US-style medical insurance is quite different in some ways from what you normally find here. It's very generous. It provides instant maternity cover. It provides, you can claim for contraceptives. I mean, it's in line with what's expected in the US. And so we couldn't source it locally. And in 2010, we decided to open a business in Wilmington in Delaware, specifically so that we could provide companies who were looking to provide their staff with the US-style medical insurance with the insurance they were looking to provide. And as we developed more business experience, especially in the group medical market, we found that in Europe there were some Scandinavian companies, particularly in Copenhagen, that were, we thought, very, very pro-customer. And this rang a bell. This kind of was in sync with our own philosophy. We found that Danish companies were generally good listeners, and they tended to, on balance, err on the side of the customer. So a couple of years ago, we sent a staff to Europe to see what's going to be involved in setting up in Europe. And we were a little surprised, but we understood the advice. And the advice was, in Europe, the way things are going for the longer term, we should establish either in Ireland or in Luxembourg. So a couple of years back, we opened Navigator Healthcare in Luxembourg, and we're continuing to serve our customers.
Now with the pandemic, everyone's lifestyle has changed. The way we work has changed. So how does this change the way people buy insurance? What do they prioritize? What are their needs today?
That's a good question. I think, if you like, philosophically, we're all affected. And what we see is that people's priorities change. They begin to think, well, this pandemic is no discerner of people. It's basically indiscriminate, and we could lose our life today, tomorrow. And so this was really brought home to me by one of our customers who was moving to Japan. And when he was married, he told me he'd been given these wedding gifts, these Villeroy & Bosch expensive dinnerware set. And for years it had sat in the cabinet behind the glass and just gathered dust. Unfortunately for my client, poor packing by the removalist meant that a large part of his dinnerware was broken on the way to Japan. But he was sharing with me, he was saying, what was the disappointment was not just the sentimental attachment he had to them, but he said also, when he got to Japan, he was determined to use that dinnerware every single day, because he said, I don't know how long I've got, and I've got to be ready. Today may be my last. I may have to meet my maker. So on a deeper level, I think people's priorities are refocusing. On a superficial level, of course, we're working more from home. We have staff who are working maybe 3 days a week in the office and so on. But as far as the insurance is concerned, well, of course, our travel insurance is gone. We're seeing an increase in demand for medical and life insurance because people are reevaluating their priorities. We had a group of pilots actually come to us because of the cost-cutting of their employer. and they wanted to try and retain the kind of benefits they'd been used to, and they asked for a group scheme we were able to find for them, which was based in Luxembourg, actually. I think also in terms of removal insurance, it's quite interesting. We used to have customers who were retiring out of Hong Kong, and they might have had a house in France, one in Bali, one in Phuket, or Vancouver. Basically, they envisaged a life in which they'd be sort of travelling around. And what we're seeing now also is that they're making a decision now, where's their ultimate home? So whereas in the past we would be insuring their shipments to different properties and different locations, what we're finding now is that people are insuring the export of their household goods to one location. And we're also seeing people that were thinking about leaving Hong Kong or perhaps going for their kids' education, making decisions earlier than they may have planned. So our shipment insurance is way up. But also for those people lucky enough to still have jobs, they're buying houses, they're buying jewellery, they're buying cars, especially motor insurance is way up. We've actually been working on a motor insurance quote system that's the only one in Hong Kong at the moment where you can get comparative quotes for your motor cover online and actually make applications.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you very much.